Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. We're back, all three of us. That's right, you are hearing my voice again. I am Illeagle 86. I have been gone for the past 2 weeks. It feels like 2 years. But I'm back. I'm happy to be back in a new place. I don't know if you guys told them what I was doing. I was moving, guys. I was packing boxes and then very soon after unpacking boxes, which, you know, it was what it was. We don't need to get into it. But I'm here with Techtic and Nerdbomber, my two very good friends who have been holding down the fort very admirably these past couple of weeks. Guys, what was the hardest part of not having me around?
Nothing. It was super easy. We can totally go on without me.
Wow.
Okay. Well, no, that's good to know.
Leading the show is very difficult. I give you props every week. I feel like I had this giant note sheet and it was hard. So I'm appreciative that you're back.
Yeah, I tend to stutter a lot when I'm trying to speak more than my normal 2 words an episode.
The best way to do it in terms of the notes is don't have any notes, because then there's something that you have written down to screw up. You just do it live. Like Bill O'Reilly said that one time. Remember that? You ever see that clip, that meme? It's explicit. I can't say the whole thing. Okay, he went for it. We'll bleep that in post. We'll give that to the intern. We got a great show lined up today. We're going to be talking about a couple of TV shows. One of them being a spinoff. Well, both of them are actually spinoffs. It's a spinoff night here at the Online Warriors podcast. And then we're going to be talking about Pokemon. You decide how to pronounce it. We're going to talk about that specifically in the context of the theme park. Ooh, very exciting. Yeah, we're here in the middle of October. The weather is starting to get a little colder, but we're all warm and cozy here in your ears. I like to imagine that we live in people's ears and we just talk into the ear holes, so they don't even need to wear
the little angel and devil on the shoulder. But like, who is who? Who would be the angel? Who would be the devil? And like, what is the third person?
I would just be one of those bugs that you see in those weird extraction videos. That's what I would do.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I'll take either one. I feel like, Nerdbomber, let's be serious. I think you're the angel. I'm not sure that I'm particularly the devil, but someone's got to do it. And Techtic's apparently a bug, which I don't know why he would choose that. But yeah, the point is all three of us are here, and it's so good to be back. And I'm going to be giving the quiz later. Spoiler alert. I don't know what's happened with that, actually, since I've been gone. I assume Techtic won both times because he's been on an absolute hot streak lately, but I'll get the update on that later. Let's talk about WandaVision because, well, first of all, that happened. That was either earlier this year or late last year. Time is a construct. But one of the buzziest characters, I would say, it was Agatha all along. We all know the song. You've all heard it. You're probably hearing it in your head right now. The great Catherine Hahn, known for many other things, one of which is Step Brothers, but a lot of stuff besides that, starred as Agatha Harkness in WandaVision. I don't know, is this a spoiler? Should I be just openly? I mean, that's what the whole news is.
It's been out
for such who she is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a headline, so.
Right. You don't, if you haven't watched WandaVision yet, sorry. Spoilers,
you're living under a rock.
It's one of those weird things, too, where the big reveal happened in the show in like, I don't know, in the middle of the show or towards the end of it, of like, oh, Agnes is actually Agatha Harkness. And my first reaction was, who is Agatha Harkness? So like, it's also like, if I tell you like Agatha Harkness right now and you haven't watched the show, chances are you don't know who I'm talking about anyways. You just know that I'm talking about Catherine Hahn. And you also, again, have probably heard the song, even if you didn't watch the show. The point is, what should come as no surprise to anyone, a spinoff is in development. Now, Catherine Hahn was amazing in this show. I believe she was up for an Emmy. She didn't win, but I believe she was up for an Emmy for her performance. She was perfect for the role. There's a lot of meat on those bones in terms of the character, because this was obviously just the introduction of this character. I think we got a little bit of backstory in the show about how she kind of became who she was or who she is. Clearly a very powerful character. And I know there's a lot of comic backstory that I will as ever defer to Techtic for. This is a big deal. We have Jack Schaefer, who served as head writer on WandaVision, who will be serving as writer and executive producer on this project. What she gets up to is unclear. And again, going to spoiler town here for a second. At the end of WandaVision, she's stuck in there, right? That's what happens, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Yes, Wanda casts a spell that forces her to be that personality that she was pretending to be.
Right. And she's in, I don't remember the name of the town, but she's stuck in there. So presumably it's going to be, it makes sense that it has the same head writer and production team. It presumably will be about her getting out, because there's no way her character is just going to be locked in there in the MCU forever, right? She's going to become a factor in future movies or shows, whatever. So
I know
it's
that,
a fairly
but like
natural continuation.
I want to see the beginning. I want to see her, and I know we kind of got
You
her
want
origin
Salem.
story, but like I want to see Salem. I think that would be so cool, and it would feel so original. Like one of the cool things about Disney Plus and all of these shows that they're doing is that they're so different from the MCU that we're getting in the cinema, and they can basically do anything. All of these little tangential stories. Give me Salem. How sick would that be?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think we were introduced to a lot more characters than we realized we were introduced to, especially in that Salem scene. So those other witches she like took out, I believe those were the Salem 7. And if you don't know who the Salem 7 are, those are the kids of Nicholas Scratch. And if you don't know who Nicholas Scratch is, that's her little boy. And so just in that scene alone, we were not only potentially introduced to her kid, but we were also introduced to her kid's kid. And so there's a lot of magical presence that we've already been introduced to that has to circle back. It just absolutely has to. Now, that said, she took these people out. So maybe it will be covered a little bit of backstory, but really my main theory of how I think she's going to get out of this is, what was the number one theory that people thought who the main bad guy was going to be in WandaVision?
Mephisto.
Right.
Everyone's Mephisto.
Everyone is Mephisto, and
Everyone's
only makes
Mephisto.
sense that now is when they introduce him. When everyone's kind of moved on from it and go, no, we're done with this. That's how I think she's going to escape. And then I think it's going to circle back to some kind of rivalry, her versus her son.
Wait, do we not still think Mephisto is in Spider-Man? Did we move on from that too?
We should talk about
Everyone
this,
is
because
Mephisto.
I think that Mephisto was one big head fake. I mean, have you guys watched Loki yet, by the way? Because if not, I'm about to like spoil Loki. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well, to
I think
audience,
the big bad
I guess
of the
Loki
next,
spoilers.
No, I know. I won't.
These are going to be high key
filter,
spoilers.
but I think stuff. I think that the big bad was identified in Loki. The big bad for the next phase, the next Thanos, basically, was identified in Loki.
And I'm really glad that you brought up Loki, because I have a long-term theory with respect to that and how they're going to play into Agatha Harkness's line.
Right. So I don't see. I see that big bad, who I won't reveal who it is.
Okay.
But I see that character being direct. Oh, fine, you're just going to reveal it. I see him being directly involved in this and in anything else the MCU does moving forward. But Mephisto, not so much. That would be a big surprise for me.
The reason why I think long term that she's going to have a role with Kang is because in the comic books, she plays sort of a guardian role for Franklin Richards, who is Mr.
Reed Richards,
Fantastic
something or other.
and Invisible Woman's kid. Okay? Down that family tree, you have Nathaniel Richards. Okay? Nathaniel Richards is a time traveler who then takes on the persona of, drumroll please, Kang. And so it's
Is this going to turn into a Star Wars situation where everyone's a Skywalker? Because to be clear, I don't want that. You're saying everyone's related. That scares me.
I mean, Kang is related to the Richards family, but Agatha Harkness was really just a babysitter, not related. But she does have a pivotal role in the Fantastic Four, and so what I'm getting at is this story is really going to roll into the Fantastic Four, which is going to connect Kang to everything. That's how they're going to tie Loki into WandaVision's storyline.
You think they're going to give the Fantastic Four a third go? Do we know? Is that
they're
a thing?
absolutely going to give the Fantastic Four a third go.
They totally are. I think that's like confirmed already, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, Techtic just said it.
They're going to make that. They're going to make that happen. I mean, I will agree with you too, Nerdbomber. Circling back to your previous point, when I go back now and I watch Captain America: The First Avenger, I am publicly not a Captain America fan, and Nerdbomber, I believe you are also not a Captain America fan. Not a big fan of the character, but the Captain America: The First Avenger, that movie is a great Marvel movie. And do you know why? It's also a period piece. Like I think that adds a layer to these superhero movies that makes them so much more interesting.
Well, I mean,
So,
I know
like,
this isn't Marvel,
Wonder
but I
Woman
mean,
that's another example of that.
that's what I was going to say. Wonder Woman, I think part of what made that movie was the fact that, they were bringing in historical settings, and it wasn't just like, oh, here's some modern day buffoonery and we're going to make some few jokes. Like,
So like Wonder Woman 2. Although it was in the 80s. But
yeah,
it was
that
just-
was a period piece too.
Yeah, that was in the
well done.
80s.
But it wasn't like historical
I-
either. It was just some buffoonery in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think there's a gap potentially. I think the MCU would do well to do another kind of period piecey thing. It's like Captain Marvel was also it was supposed to be like a 90s period piece, I think, but it didn't really come through,
Well, because I think they were trying to mask that so that she could show up then in Endgame. Like
there was like one.
It was later
like a
on that you
blockbuster
kind of
reference.
realized it was supposed to be set a little bit back in time.
There's a blockbuster reference. That's supposed to be the main hint of like, oh man, this happened a while ago. But like, and the other thing is it makes it interesting and I guess kind of problematic is like if you put Agatha Harkness, if you make a whole movie about her back during Salem, it raises naturally many questions about, well, where was she all this other time? And you can already kind of ask that question because you saw her origin to a limited extent in the show.
Well, that's
and
sort
you
of
can ask
why
the
I
question
think
now, where was she the whole time?
they're going to introduce Mephisto as this sort of in-between duration before getting into Kang.
But think about this. So you start, first of all, your very first season. I'm going to lay out like this plot line, an overarching multi-season Agatha Harkness show. First season.
I mean, there might only be one season. It seems like they're one seasoning these.
Yeah, but like I want
go
multiple seasons here. So I'm going to lay this out, and Marvel, you can steal this. I got you, fam. So first season, obviously you have to drop it October 1st. Maybe in September to kind of like, if you're going to do the weekly release shtick and lead up to Halloween, everyone's going to love it, go wild, make it in Salem, witch trials, all that kind of stuff. Then you can have Agatha Harkness travel through time. Every season can be her marching towards WandaVision.
No, it's going to be more relevant flashbacks pertinent to whatever the dialogue is.
They're already doing a lot of time stuff with Loki. And I guess I was
Yeah, but
there is
like
gonna be a
imagine
Loki
having
too, I
like
think.
your WandaVision, like what they kind of did with WandaVision, every episode was set in a different time period. Imagine if you got to have a whole season with Agatha Harkness. And I got to be honest, Catherine Hahn is freaking gem. Like, I know everybody's finally starting to see that she is amazing, but like I've been, banging this drum since, oh my God, what was the movie with Ashton Kutcher and Emily something? I don't even remember the main stars, but Catherine Hahn was in it as like the main female protagonist.
The best
friend.
movie description. The best movie description ever. Ashton Kutcher and Emily something and Catherine Hahn. Emily Blunt?
Yes.
You thinking?
Not Emily Blunt.
No. Are you thinking of Natalie Portman? No, she was in it with Justin. No, yeah. Ashton Kutcher and Natalie Portman were in. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that
movie and
was
the
No
Justin
Strings
Timberlake
Attached. That
Mila
was
Kunis
great.
movie. Yeah, they came out at the same time and they were about the same thing. Pretty cool. But you're not talking about that movie. You're talking about a different Ashton Kutcher movie that I don't know. I just know her from Step
Love.
Brothers.
That's where it was. A lot like Love, not Emily, Amanda Peet. I was a big Ashton
was
Kutcher
also-
rom-com fan back in the day. Like those early 2000s Ashton Kutcher rom-coms, all day. But Catherine Hahn was in it, and she was great.
Do you mean you were just a fan of Ashton Kutcher and like looking at him, or
No, not necessarily.
fan of-
They were like almost semi-cynical rom-coms, if that makes sense. Like the characters were very cynical about love. Typically more so like the female characters. And I was like an angsty teen and I was all about it. And Ashton Kutcher was
Lest we
always the
forget-
one who was always like, love will win the day. And Natalie Portman and Amanda Peet were like, no. But then they come around. Good
Love
stuff.
will win the day.
Catherine Hahn, by the way, also is going to be in Knives Out too, which is going to be the movie of the year next year. I don't even care. Like, I'm going to see that as soon as it comes out. She was also in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. There's like a Catherine Hahn-assance going on right now.
Can I just say something, by the way? If they do introduce Mephisto, I think Ashton Kutcher would do a great job. Because he's kind of got that goofy but also charmingness to him, but can also be
Ashton
serious.
Kutcher, he's washed up, man. He's done. I don't even think he's
No
acting
way.
anymore.
Dude, give me a Mephisto rom-com with Ashton Kutcher. Do it up.
I think that's over. I think he's done acting. I'm going to his IMDb page.
I'll bet you if Marvel
They-
reached out to
they
him
know.
and was like, hey, dude, do you want to be like a charming devil guy? He'd be like, Okay.
Oh, he was in that TV show, The Ranch, that I guess that's still going on. He's still acting, I guess. We're going to talk about Ashton Kutcher later, by the way, in one of our other news topics. So you can, I guess, wax poetic about how great he is then as well. But yeah, we should sally forth here. Yeah, Agatha Harkness coming back to the small screen. I think we've laid out a lot of good ideas and a lot of good kind of guidelines for them to make this show great. So like you said, Nerdbomber, Disney Plus, Disney people, feel free to steal our ideas. And we look forward to the royalties, of which I'm sure there will be plenty. So Pokemon. We just, before we started rolling tonight, we had a bit of a debate that was about 5 seconds long, and it was basically just all of us saying the name over and over again to see if we could settle on a pronunciation.
It's Pokemon.
What I think is Pokemon. I would just say Pokemon. And also, incidentally, the article I have in front of me, no accent on the E, because that was another thing we talked about. There's an accent on the E on the cards. So that leads you to think Pokemon.
I mean, the official logo has the accent on the E.
Right, and the back of the cards too. It's not Pokemon, that's just a joke. Techtic, you say Pokemon, right?
Yeah, Pokemon.
You have the hard E on there.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, at OW Illeagle 86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber, and our main show account, at Online Warriors 1, give us some phonetic spelling. How do you say Pocket Monster? How do you say it? I'm not going to influence you. I'm trying to try to avoid saying the name for the next 10 seconds. But there's a theme park happening. Now, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast. I know we talked about Nintendo World.
I think the Pokemon theme park was like
a suggestion.
Yeah, like a rumor sort of deal, but it was never anything official.
And then they listened to our podcast and they were like, you know what? These kids are right.
Right. It's now going on. So Universal Studios is putting together a long-term deal, or has put together a long-term deal, going live in 2022 with their first Pokemon collaboration, which presumably is going to be a theme park of some sort. It sounds like it's going to be in Japan. So get out your passports if you're here in the US of A like we are. Or if you're in Japan, I don't know, be happy because it's coming to you. This is, I think, the same kind of thing as Nintendo World in the sense that my main question is, why has this not already happened yet?
I just want to say,
it seems like
I am so glad that Gen X and millennials had such like weird childhoods that they refused to grow up, and now we're putting all of our childhood memories into theme parks and making the world an awesome place.
Right. Well, see, what happened is now we had weird childhoods and weird hobbies, and everyone was into Pokemon, and now we've grown up and we have money.
See, I would say
we can spend money.
My take on that whole thing is that I don't think we had weird childhoods. I mean, we definitely did have weird childhoods, like unprecedented times, all that kind of stuff. But I think we were the first generation of people who were like, you know what? I can grow up and still like the things that I've always liked. I don't need to pretend that that's like childish and immature. Nerd stuff is cool. Right. I don't have to stop.
We shrugged off the kind of taboo thing of like, oh, well, you're too old for that now. Like, and there are still things where I'm sure that's true, but like, I don't know. I think there's a universe in which like even just playing video games as an adult was seen as a weird thing back in the day, and now it's like pretty normalized. And like obviously Pokemon folds directly into that. So yeah, I mean obviously a huge merchandising opportunity. I'm seeing a lot in this article about the involvement of Pikachu specifically, given that Pikachu is as if it's the mascot of Pokemon. Is that fair to say? I don't know if that's particularly derogatory towards Pikachu, but like,
you know what is like a very appealing thing to think about? And so we've all been to Disney World, the three of us, right?
This is true.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you never like got to that point. Maybe when you were a kid, you hugged a character. Even as an adult, one that sticks out to me in particular was Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. And I mean, I still love Lilo and Stitch, and I love Stitch. But the ability to go up, and I know it was just in my mind, this person in a big Stitch suit, but like being able to hug this big cuddly Stitch was like the best feeling in the world. And being able to walk up to this big chunky looking Pikachu and just like give it a hug seems so appealing. Maybe not in like COVID world, but like post-pandemic, being able to give stranger in a Pikachu suit a hug seems like super appealing to me.
So it's a case by case basis. So I'm not sure if I ever went up to a character and like hugged on them, you know. So my point of reference there, last time I went to Disney World, we went predominantly because my little sister was of the age that you take them to Disney World. So like I was already like I might have been in college. In fact, I think I was in college.
I mean,
And
for reference, if you're
was-
worried about like judging when you went, Techtic and I went while we were in college without children, just the two of us, for reference.
Right. No, I'm not. There's no stigma for me at all. I'm just saying it made what happened so much funnier to me. My dad, we were in the Star Wars portion. This is before Star Wars World or whatever it's called. We were in like Hollywood Studios, I think is what it's called now. And there's a Star Wars section. And you know the Jabba's palace, the guards, they look like kind of like pigs that are like olive green.
Mm-hmm.
There was one of those just like kind of there for pictures, not like posing or anything, just kind of like standing there. And my dad like thought it would be funny for some to like go up to him and like try to put his arm around him and get a picture. And I like plainclothes Disney attendant person like came out of some I don't even know where she came from. She came out of some bushes or something and was like, whoa, no. So it's case by case basis in terms of like hugging characters. You got to be careful with that. He wasn't even hugging. He was just like he wanted to like look like they were best pals. Like just put his arm around his shoulders like you would a friend. And that was
I
a no-no.
understand that though. They're
Maybe-
constantly dealing with
I get
like
it, too.
over the top adults, so they probably just play it safe.
Yeah, I wonder if
It
there's
was
like
almost certainly because of how old he was too. Like if he was a kid, it would have been different. But he was like just some 50-plus-year-old man who was like, this would be hilarious. And it was, but not for the reasons he intended.
I wonder too though if like certain Disney cast members like you probably go into your shift knowing if you're going to be like a like meet and greet type
Yeah.
role for the day or not. And so I can imagine like if you're just supposed to be standing there in a costume and you're not supposed to be really like hugging people, you're probably not prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, and like in huggability, you know, it's one thing to be Stitch and be in this big suit that the person couldn't touch your actual body if they tried. Or like be in a giant Pikachu suit. And it's another thing to just be Jabba's palace guard. Like you're probably wearing some makeup and like some prosthetics, but you're still like a person, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever go up to one of the characters outside. And like, I guess no judgment to people who would, but I don't think I would feel comfortable going up to someone who wasn't in like a full body sort of suit. Because I think that to me, then
Right.
I know you're not actually like Aladdin.
Yeah,
You're just
you actually get approached by Disney characters. I remember Woody was all over you. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Oh my goodness.
Woody and
There's
I
a
were
mental
BFFs.
separation that
I'm
you
not even
do.
making this up.
No, yeah.
It's-
Woody and I had, but like, again, that was another full bodysuit thing. But Woody and I had a connection. We were best friends. It's fine.
Excuse me, Woody. Excuse me.
There's a mental separation that happens when the person's wearing a full suit that you can separate them from the fact that there's an actual human inside. Whereas you can't do that with someone who's not wearing a giant like rubber or suit or whatever it's made of. But yeah, Pokemon. Let's get back to Pokemon. We've diverged as we often do. So yeah, Universal Studios Japan, 2022 is when this starts. Pikachu confirmed to be involved. I mean, this article is pretty vague otherwise. It's just basically saying, hey, it's not going live till 2022. Pokemon is bringing its flavor to the world of theme parks. I guess, Techtic, you've been, what do you want to see here? You guys are both the Pokemon people. I'm not, so.
There's quite a lot that is involved in the Pokemon world. And the food for the one thing is just awesome. There's countless episodes where they steam dumplings or make the rice balls or whatever, and they just all look fantastic. I've mentioned that with every other themed park that they've rolled out in the Nintendoverse. So there's that. The other thing is gym battles, guys. Gym battles. And I don't know
if gym battles.
I don't know if I would say that. Oh no, not gym battles. I'm not
gym
saying
battles.
that.
Sorry, you said it, dude.
The park goers would gym battle, but think about the shows that they can put on. They can have like, hey, come 10 o'clock to see
Ash battle the Elite Four.
Yeah, and then not only that, there's also Gigantamaxing that's been introduced, so they can have these huge, larger than life, I guess we'll call them mechas of oversized Pokemon. It's just, I really hope they leverage Gigantamaxing. If you don't know what it is, you take a normal
Nerdbomber,
Pokemon battle and you gigantify it.
I mean,
Nerdbomber,
I think
if you don't bring back that photo of gym battles for this episode teaser, I'm gonna be upset.
one of the things that I think they could do, like you could easily do the whole gym badge thing if you brought back, if you integrated with Pokemon Go, and everybody, I mean, that's so easy to download. Everybody has access to it, and you integrate that into the park experience, and you could collect special gym battles or special Pokemon just being in the park. That would be super cool. Also, though, like, I'm thinking even just the actual physical rides that you could make. Like, I'm thinking turning Disney World rides into Pokemon rides. Like, the Soarin' ride at Disney puts you on the back of a Charizard, like, going through the world of Pokemon. I'm trying to think of other things. I mean,
just make a Pokemon Snap ride. Just make that game.
Be in
Yeah.
Team Rocket's balloon too,
Boom.
if you don't want to do a Charizard.
yeah, like, you could make that the Buzz Lightyear ride where you have, like, the gun, instead turn that into a
Right.
camera, and then you're just moving through trying to do Pokemon Snap. I think there's so many possibilities to make a really fun park here. And the only thing that I'm kind of sad about is that it's going to be a small portion of Universal. I feel like at this point, you know, if you're Nintendo, you know you're working with Universal to do like your Super Mario Land, and you know that you're making a Pokemon Land. Why not just say, like, almost do a Disney World thing? Say, hey, Universal.
Right, just buy a bunch of land.
Yeah, let's make another Universal park integrated into your property and just make a giant Nintendo World. Just do it.
I mean,
go big.
They would basically just be printing money at that point. I can't even imagine the amount of people who
would come from all around the world. All around.
When we went to this same trip I was talking about, my dad tried to take a picture with the Jabba the Palace guy. We went to Universal Studios that same trip, and my little brother, like halfway through the day, his phone died. And he had to borrow my mom's phone because he had been playing Pokemon Go all day. Like you said, if they integrate that into the park experience, they're not going to get people to leave. Like,
I
people
think
are going to show up
Pokemon
there, they're
Go
not gonna,
should leverage the park. I don't think it should be integrated in per se. I think the park should have
There's
their
a
own
right way to do
standalone app, because some people just can get frustrated with Pokemon Go, and I think the collaboration would almost be too complicated and make them lose money. Whereas they can really leverage, you know, buy this, go on this thing, do that to enhance your park experience.
The other thing they could do, and I could think of multiple ways to do this, but at Universal in Florida, they have the Harry Potter world, and you can buy, and we did buy, a wand with an infrared tip that you can interact with at certain point in the park that are like labeled. You can interact with things and quote unquote cast spells, right? So sell Pokedexes or something. Like Pokedexes, Pokeballs, like they clearly understand that technology enough to implement it in that way, and to do it for Pokemon. And those wands at Harry Potter were like $50. Again, it's just printing money at that point. So yeah, this is going to be a big deal.
I really hope they do
I
implement
think in the same way that
infrared technology too, because that stuff's really easy to reverse engineer and make your own whatever you want in your own getup. It doesn't need to be a wand or a Pokeball. It could be a gym badge, and just you guys can have fun in the world.
So this, I think it's going to be on par with Nintendo World in terms of the bigness of the deal. And even if it starts small, I think the response can only be positive, and it's eventually going to get big. It's just a matter of when and how long it takes, given that we're still living in the age of COVID. And there's stuff in this article about, you know, how the release is going to be affected by COVID, and they already know that because it's planned for 2022. So we'll no doubt be circling back to this now that we know it's moving along and it's no longer just a rumor. But for now, Pokemon fans or Pokemon fans, however you want to say it, rejoice. So yeah, that brings us to the midpoint of the show. So we're going to take our break to shout out a sponsor. But before we do, I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen, take a bow. It's been a pleasure having you at our round table for these months that we've had you. And we appreciate everything you've done for the show. So Stephen, as a producer, gets this shout out. He gets input into the weekly game segment. He gets the occasional guest spot on the show. And he, of course, gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. And he's a Knight subscriber on our Patreon, which is the highest of our 3 tiers of support. There's a second tier, which is the Squire level, which gives you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. And also the Page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So for more details on any of those levels of support, you can head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast. Check out the details there, and we would appreciate any support for the show. Keep things going, keep the lights on, keep the computers on, etc. We do this with computers. This is not analog. I'm on a computer right now. Yeah, we appreciate any support. We thank Stephen again, and we'll take a short break now to shout out a sponsor, and we'll be back to talk about That 70s Show. Today's podcast is presented by PODGO. PODGO is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from PODGO. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, the Online Warriors podcast, in the How Did You Hear About PODGO section of the application. Thanks again to PODGO, and we'll get back to the episode.
This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sarah and I gorge ourselves in overanalyzing a topic.
The body count in this children's movie.
It's insanely high. The reason he's able to be a good assassin is because no one would expect a gorilla to kill you.
I made the incredibly stupid decision to start Marble Hornets.
And the robot says, I know where we can find your baby. It was stolen by Cap'n Crunch.
He sounds like Chuck Huber.
Yeah. How did you... No, I was going to say that. The Gorge. 3 times a month, wherever you get your podcasts.
You guys remember that 70s show? It was the show on Fox that was about the 70s, predominantly. Starring, well, Topher Grace, Ashton Kutcher, who we already talked about, Mila Kunis, Kurtwood Smith, and Deborah Jo Rupp, who played Red and Kitty Foreman on the show. It was, a family sitcom kind of thing. They got into 70s hijinks. Wilmer Valderrama also played Fez, and there were a bunch of other characters as well. I was actually never a huge That 70s Show person. It was one of those shows I watched it when it was on kind of thing. But we're not, we're talking about a spinoff here. Netflix has ordered a spinoff of That 70s Show called That 90s Show. So let's not gloss over that. We're old. That 70s Show is to us as That 90s Show is to now. Like that's not the analogy, but there's an analogy to be had here. So the original creators of That 70s Show, Bonnie Turner and Terry Turner, have returned to write and executive produce alongside their daughter, Lindsay Turner, who is probably hip. Like, I'm guessing those two are probably older, and now they're like, we need to bring in someone who knows what people like on TV these days. Kurtwood Smith and Deborah Jo Rupp are returning as Red and Kitty Foreman, and the show will be set in 1995. And Leah Foreman, daughter of Eric and Donna, is visiting her grandparents for the summer, where she bonds with a new generation of Point Place kids, Point Place being Point Place, Wisconsin, under the watchful eye of Kitty and the stern glare of Red. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll never dies. It just changes clothes.
So does that mean we're not going to get any cameos from like the original kids? She's just going to be like on her lonesome?
I'm sure Topher Grace is going to be involved. I mean, what's that guy doing if not this?
Also, probably his sister as well is going to show up.
No, his sister, like, if I remember correctly, she's either dead or she's in a lot of drug trouble.
In real life or in the show?
In real life.
Huh.
Similarly, I am sure Danny Masterson won't be back for it. If you don't know why, I don't know. I'm just Google it.
What about Fez? Fez is doing fantastic, and he really
Fez
blew
is
up.
doing great. Fez should be back.
The glow up is real. The glow up is real.
He's a hunk of burning love,
what
if
happened
you say so
to
myself.
The sister got arrested or something. I don't remember. It doesn't say in this article, of course. But this is pretty fascinating. I mean, again, I wasn't really a huge fan of the original show, but it's the latest kind of installment in spin-off culture, right? This is happening everywhere, and Netflix is dipping into this in the same way. I think it was Peacock who brought back Saved by the Bell, which I actually don't know how that's going. They brought back Boy Meets World a while back on the Disney Channel. It's kind of a thing. Again, kind of in the same vein as the Pokemon theme park is. It's like, okay, who's watching TV right now? Well, the people who watched, that 70s show are still watching TV, and we know that we can pull on the nostalgia strings if we bring back these characters. I mean, I might give it a shot. I don't know. I don't really have a horse in this race, but it's as reasonable an idea as any, I think. And getting the old creators back is certainly the right way to do it.
So reflecting on my own childhood, the things that I expect to see are as follows. There has to be a Pokemon reference. It's not going to be a main part of the show because they're probably going to be a little bit older. So there's going to be
an episode.
Everyone drank from the... Did everyone's parents have liquor bottles stored on top of the fridge?
No.
Well, I mean, that happened in the 70s too. That was like episodes of that 70s show about it too. It was not like that's not a 90s thing.
That never ages either way. And everyone knows,
Right.
you take the clear liquids, cut it with water, call it a day, right? So that's going to be
They
in
know
there.
it now if they didn't before.
And then the thing that I'm most excited for is the punk rock phase. Do you guys remember
like grunge, you mean?
Warped Tour and all that
grunge
other
phase.
good stuff?
Do I remember Warped Tour? Are you kidding? I still listen to that music now.
Okay.
I was never really in the Warped Tour thing.
Pop punk is not dead.
I think
There, I said it.
dial up internet gonna be a
God.
big deal here.
That noise has to be in there.
Lunchables.
It's gonna be like
Everyone's going to be eating
Lunchables
Lunchables.
again. Lunchables is still going on though. I ate Lunchables recently, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
It actually
still eat
works out with
Lunchables.
with the comeback of Dunkaroos made that one easy for him.
Dunkaroos, yeah. I'm thinking there's like the Seinfeld episode where they're waiting for the table at the Chinese restaurant. There's going to be an entire episode of this show where they're just waiting for a dial-up connection.
Do you guys remember this? You get on the internet and then all of a sudden it disconnects and then you scream upstairs, "Hang up the phone!" You remember that?
Yeah. There's gonna be a whole episode about that. There's pretty much no doubt. What else was going on in the 90s? Big jeans were going on in the 90s.
Late night
Probably
phone
come back.
calls. Like, well, my parents are asleep. Let's talk on the phone.
Right. It's gonna be great.
Light up
I
speakers.
think like because Fresh Prince is coming back too. So there's like a 90s. We're hitting the point in our lives where I guess our childhoods are now seen as like retro properties.
See, but Fresh Prince
which is disconcerting.
is a reboot. This is sort of a new spin. I prefer this. I like new, fresh takes than I do just reboots. Because that
I
one
guess
feels
I'm
like
a
it's trying
Fresh-
to replace.
Fresh Prince is going to be current day, I would think. I actually don't know, but that'll probably be current day. Whereas this is ostensibly going to be set in 1995. So it's going to be interesting. I am curious to see if they're going to get Laura Prepon and Topher Grace back, if at least for cameo roles. And also who's going to play Leah Foreman, because that's, potentially a big role.
The one thing that I am concerned about, and I feel like a lot of the Netflix original comedies, especially the short form ones, the series that Netflix orders is very limited. It's either 8 or 10 episodes. And I gotta be honest, that's not nearly enough when you're talking about a half-hour show. I feel like you need to at least do a double order for a season. Because if you went back in time, like the seasons of shows, obviously I think it's unrealistic to expect 20 plus episodes per season. But I think you got to give more than 8 or 10, especially when it's a short comedy like this, because then people are going to blow through it in a week and it's going to be old news. So I think they hopefully have a little more faith in it to do a longer run than just, the standard 10 episodes.
Well, or they might do delayed releases, because a lot of shows are doing that now, where they, like Ted Lasso, they put out one a week.
The other thing that I struggle with is where these kids were in their lives in that 70s shows. They were older, so they were kind of able to get into worse trouble, so to speak, and their lives were at a more serious state. Marriage was potentially a real thing for Eric and Donna, lifelong commitments, etc. Whereas,
Well, Leah might be the same age in the
right,
show.
but the
right?
problem is Red looked way older, whereas Topher Grace is not going to look that much older than whatever actor they pick, just because he's aged gracefully. It just might not look right.
True. I mean, Topher Grace is probably going to have a cameo situation. It sounds like Kurtwood Smith is actually going to be like, and he's even older now, so it's even funnier.
And I actually do wonder if they've considered this, and that's why they're staying with the grandparents, so that
Maybe.
there's like a stark difference between age of the parental figure and the kids.
The generational gap is like a clear fixture in that 70s. I haven't watched very much of it, but I know that. It's a clear fixture in the original run of that 70s show, and it's a constant thing they kind of keep going back to, right? So I totally agree. As far as the short season goes, I mean, TV comedy is weird like that, right? Where, think about Parks and Rec and The Office and Seinfeld. I think they all had very short first seasons. And granted, that's network TV. It's kind of a different animal. But show, and all those seasons, by the way, are like the worst seasons of the show. And they're the most awkward to watch. And you can tell they're trying to get their footing. So I don't know if streaming works the same way, where they have short orders simply so they can try to get a sense and a feel for what's going on. But
then
it'll be interesting to see.
subsequent follow-up seasons also end up being short.
Yeah, like I said, streaming's a different animal. Time will tell. I don't know if any show on Netflix has ever gotten a 24 episode order. To some extent, it's just not how things are done anymore. Ted Lasso's I think this season's had 12 episodes, and that feels long. So I don't know. It's a fair point. But yeah, there's no release date tied to this yet. This is in the early going as far as I can tell. But we'll be on the lookout for more details. If you're a fan of that 70s show, I'm sure you're happy. There's not much to be unhappy about. Now we have to wait to hear about Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. I could easily see them being more than cameo roles.
Well, especially because
Ashton
Kutcher's, like, The Ranch is a Netflix show.
Yeah, he's not done acting by any sense.
He's tied to Netflix contractually in some way, maybe in the same way that Adam Sandler is, and maybe that's what they're thinking here too. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, we can transition into what are you up to Wednesday, and I'm gonna go first because it's been a minute for me. I have some updates. As I mentioned before, I've been moving. There's not much to say there other than that it's been happening. Finished Ted Lasso. I'm sure you guys did as well. It's the best show on television. I have nothing to say other than that, if only because I don't want to spoil anything, but also it's just that's the most succinct description of it that I can provide. I think it also, since I was last on the show, I think it was when it won like 5 Emmys or something, and they're all well deserved. Other television that we're watching, Midnight Mass, which is the latest Mike Flanagan. He did Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor.
That seems too
we're working our way through
me.
that. It's kind of scary. You probably wouldn't like it. It's okay so far. I think I liked Haunting of Bly Manor better so far, although I've heard people think this is his best one. So we'll see. I think we're 3 episodes in and there's like 7 or something. So we have a ways to go through that yet. On the gaming front, it's not much of an update because it's just I bought a game, but I did buy Metroid Dread. I haven't played it yet, but I assume you'll be hearing from me about how that's going maybe next week, maybe the week after that, as I continue fighting the unpacking fight here. But other shows in the hopper, Great British Baking Show is back, so we've been watching that. We haven't finished the latest season of The Circle yet. There's at least one other show that I'm not remembering, but yeah, it's been a lot of like TV while unpacking boxes. Seinfeld's on Netflix now. PSA, if you're a Seinfeld fan like I am, it's a lot easier to watch now than it was. Yeah, October like 3rd or something, I think was when it first hit. So that's a huge deal if you're a fan of that show like I am. Other than that, no concrete updates right now, but things are going well and I'm happy to be back. Nerdbomber, over to you. What's going on?
So I'm a little bit in a gaming rut. I finished God of War and it was so good that I fear it may have ruined gaming for me for a little bit. Like I don't want to recommend it to you, Illeagle, because then you'll never play it. But I would put it above Mass Effect, I think.
That's true.
And so
bold claim. Very bold claim.
Like it's definitely, it doesn't have the RPG elements that you hate. And the story is great. And I waxed poetic about it for 2 weeks, so I'm not going to wax poetic about it more. But I tried to play then Scarlet Nexus, which got added to Game Pass. And that was a rough transition from God of War. And I don't know if it was because I came off of God of War that I just couldn't get into it, or if it was because I kept comparing it to Astral Chain and like those platinum games that I enjoy. And it just wasn't living up to, you know, how fun that was. Because, I mean, it has a very similar aesthetic to Astral Chain. You know, you've got the whole like bio-brain interface link to something. You're part of like an elite task force. But like it wasn't vibing with me. So, you know, I have this thing lately where I'm trying to, you know, if I don't like a game, I'm not going to stick it out. And especially knowing that like it's a 25-hour game, you know, I got a few hours in and I was just like, this is not my jam. So at least I didn't buy it and I put it down. And so that was cool. But then we also watched a movie, and we actually talked about it, I think, on the show, Queen Pins. And that's a Paramount Plus original. That was the one with Kristen Bell, Vince Vaughn.
The Coupon Ladies.
The Coupon Ladies, right? Yes.
The Coupon Ladies, yeah.
And it was, I don't think it was as funny as I anticipated it being. It was a little bit, they had more elements of like serious life stories and stuff like that. And not that detracted from it at all, because I know it was based off a true story anyway, so they have to add a little bit of like gravitas to it and not completely just make it like a ridiculous romp. But I guess I was expecting it to be a little bit funnier than it was. That said, considering it was a free movie on Paramount Plus, I thought it was pretty well done and I enjoyed it. Like it was a decently funny movie. It had a decent amount of like stupid one-liners that I enjoyed, and I think it was worth a watch. It was fun. So that's kind of been me.
Nice.
I did start Jedi Fallen Order, but I haven't put a lot of time into it yet, so I'll circle back.
You know how that
next
goes,
week.
because I fell off that wagon. That's another kind of it's based on your God of War experience. I feel like that's a pretty brutal turn. Not that like it's a fine game, but I don't remember being wowed by it. So I'll be curious to see what your take on it is.
I'll let you know when I play it more. But yeah, God of War just ruined, I feel like, everything for a little bit. Cause that's the problem. If things are too good, then I just get into like, like the infamous show hole or book hole when you like finish something that's amazing and then you just, everything looks bad.
Well, on that happy note, T-Dog, first of all, do you mind if I call you T-Dog?
Sure.
What's been going on with you in the doghouse?
So I'm going to start with movies. So we also watched the movie Infinite with Marky Mark. And I have to say, the premise was pretty good. It's basically a certain sect of individuals has the ability to remember all of their past lives. And so all of these skills kind of comes naturally to them because they've learned it over many lives and so on and so forth. And pretty cool premise. Honestly, if you're looking for a mindless, action-packed movie, I'd say it was really good. There was a couple things in the movie where I thought they took it a little too far about what the abilities are. But overall, I'd say it was entertaining.
This was another Peacock
Paramount,
original, right? Or it was some Paramount
Plus. Right. As you can tell, we're rocking the current week-long free trial. So Quiet Place 2 is up next weekend before we finish our trial.
This was the guy that directed Wanted, I believe, is who made Infinite, which Wanted is a great mindless action movie. Kind of similar in a lot of ways, it sounds like, based on your description of Infinite.
Yeah, where basically it was a good movie, but some things they just took it a little too far, and you're like, okay, take it easy there, bud.
Yeah.
I think this one was supposed to have had a theatrical release, but obviously, like with COVID, it got slated to just streaming. I think I would have been mad if I paid money for it, but to just like watch it at home was perfectly perfect for it.
Right. There are definitely movies that benefit from that. Like, and in the next couple of weeks, my fiance and I are planning. She's been wanting to watch Dune for so long, and it comes out, I think, later this month. And we're going to watch it at home because it's on HBO Max for free. And like, we might not go see it in theater because it's 2.5 hours. And like, that's a long time to spend in a theater. So there's certain movies that definitely benefit from that model. I mean, not financially, they probably don't, but like in terms of people liking it, that's a thing. But anyways, that's a sidetrack. Techtic, keep going.
So the other thing is I have Metroid Dread and it's just sitting in my house, and I told myself I'm not going to play it until I finish the current game I'm playing on Switch. And that game currently, I'm trying to finish Sword and Shield, Pokemon Sword to be specific. And I'm so close. I'm almost the world's greatest Pokemon trainer, but all the shenanigans keeps happening and sidetracking my main story. Hopefully by next weekend, I will have some news for you with Metroid Dread.
Yeah, we'll be able to maybe move through that together, or at least at a kind of move through it together. I'm curious about. We've never done that with a game before, and I'm curious to see how that goes, what our opinions are on the game, and if they differ and why. And it'll be an instructive experience for both of us, I think. So stay tuned, listeners. That's going to be a thing.
And then the last thing, which going back to the TV side of it, is we started watching a series called Genlock. It's an animated series about basically people are given the ability to download their minds into kind of like Gundam suits, if you're familiar with Gundam. And it is action-packed. The art style is fantastic. The science fiction side of it is really cool. And honestly, we're only a couple episodes in, and the show is phenomenal. I definitely recommend it.
The voice cast is very impressive. Michael B. Jordan is one of the main characters. Dakota Fanning, Maisie Williams. There's a couple other people that David Tennant, like big name actors. I think it's even produced by Michael B. Jordan. It's a Rooster Teeth show that HBO Max picked up. And I think Michael B. Jordan is driving the bus a little bit with the like producing front. And I think there's going to be a season 2 coming out soon, supposedly. Maybe.
Interesting.
So check it out.
I'd just watch Michael B. Jordan drive a bus. That's enough for me. But this also sounds cool. Right on. Well, that's what we've been up to, which brings us, of course, to quiz time. And I'm back in the quiz hosting chair. So, okay, give me the update here. what happened in the past couple of weeks? Did you do quizzes? If you did, who won? What records should I have down? I missed 2 weeks, and I have Nerdbomber 9 and 10, Techtic 8 and 9. So what do I need to know?
All right. So the first week you were gone, we did a trivia. It was like a one-on-one sort of thing. But then, I lost. But then Techtic realized posthumously that he messed up the math. So I don't know if we want to count that one.
No, we'll toss it out.
And then for that reason and the difficulties it presented, we just skipped the quiz last week. So our listeners didn't have any quiz goodness for a week.
Well, we're back. Don't worry, we're back in the saddle now, and my records are current. So I'm at 15 and 2, Nerdbomber at 9 and 10, Techtic at 8 and 9. And we're going to talk about the Saw movies today. Now, my relationship with the Saw movies is pretty interesting. First of all, the first one is good and scary. That's my opinion. The other ones that I've seen a handful of them. I don't even know which ones I've seen. It was the sort of thing where like I would watch them at sleepovers and like not really pay too much attention to them, and they were ridiculous. And I think they knew they were ridiculous. But
why was Saw
nonetheless
Saw was a sleepover movie? Because we watched that at sleepovers too. Like, why was that a thing? Was it just like the universal?
That's what we were doing,
movie?
guys. That's what we were doing.
I think it came out. They came out around a time when, at least given our ages, we had become capable of watching whatever the heck we wanted to, and that was Saw is like gore porn for the most part. So I think we just kind of, or for people we were friends with, gravitated to, oh, well, we can watch it, so we should. Not a good paradigm, but nonetheless a very successful franchise. So we're going to be talking about the entire franchise in this quiz, and we'll start with the most basic question: how many movies are there in the Saw universe? These are all numerical questions. We're going to do prices right as usual. And we will start with, who should we start with now? Because it's actually really close. Why don't we start with Nerdbomber?
I think, aren't there 13 of them? I'm going to go with 13 because I'm pretty sure there's 13.
I'm not going to answer you. So yeah, you have to guess something. So 13 is Nerdbomber's guess. So Techtic, over to you.
What was your response to her question?
That he's not going to answer
I'm
me.
I'm not going to answer because that would.
Because I said it in like equipment or
I thought it was
form.
8. I thought they stopped at 8.
Techtic's on the board. There are 9. And the last one actually only came out. It came out like last year or something. It was the one weird one with Chris Rock in it called Spiral. It's like an offshoot kind of movie. So there are 9. I think Saw 1 through 7. No, Saw 1 through 6, and there's Saw 3D, then Jigsaw, then Spiral, I believe is the order. So there are 9. So Techtic's on the board. What was the budget of the first movie? And this is over to Techtic now. Have you guys seen the first movie?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, considering the vast scenery that the first movie had, I'm going to call it $10 million.
Over to Nerdbomber.
I feel like it wasn't that much, but I also don't want to bust. I'm going to say 500,000. I know that's not right, but I know I'm lowballing it, but that's in the interest of not busting.
Lowball you did, and it was a good strategy. $1.2 million. This was the director, Lee Wannell. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. He also starred in the movie. This was his first movie out of film school, basically. Shoestring budget, $1.2 million. It wound up making over $100 million. So clearly a success. The first movie is legitimately good. That's my opinion. When was the first movie released? And we're back to Nerdbomber starting. It's a tie game.
Oh boy. I'm between 2 dates. I'm going to go with 1997.
Techtic.
It's too early. I'm going to go with 1998.
Oh, you won
Quite
up
a
to
bit
me.
too early. Quite a bit too early. October 29th, 2004. These came out much later than you anticipated, clearly. So Techtic takes the lead back. And I have 5 questions and a tiebreaker. So this is a dead heat so far. The highest grossing installment in the franchise worldwide is Saw 3. How much did it make worldwide? How much did it gross?
500 million.
501.
You have to remember, these are R-rated movies that people can't take their kids to. You both busted. Wait, what did you say?
Your
Nerdbomber?
one up.
Oh, you said 501. 164, 874, 275. So about 165 million. Yeah, and they're really gory movies. So the audience, for a horror movie, that's extremely good.
Yeah, I guess
But
that's fair.
Those tend to have pretty low grosses. So, okay, still 2-1, Techtic in the lead. Going into the final question. So Nerdbomber, buck up. Okay, so I was looking online. I wanted one of the questions to be, what is the body count of the entire franchise? And I could only find data for the first 7 entries. So that's Saw 1 up through Saw 6 and Saw 3D. What is the body count for the first 7 entries of the Saw franchise? And what was the 5th question? So Techtic. No, Nerdbomber, sorry.
And you can only one up once. Just putting that out there.
House rule. Okay.
Let's say an average of 428.
See, the average of 4 rule would work well. Only Saw 3 was an entire slaughterhouse. There was like teams of people that got murked. And so I think it's like 35.
Techtic takes it, walking away. 81, guys. I mean,
wow.
There's some of these, like Techtic said, Saw 3 was a slaughterhouse. There's like each one, there's like multiple scenarios where people die. It seems like it can stack up pretty easily, and clearly it does.
Yeah,
81.
I guess I was just thinking of like main characters.
I got that number, by the way, from a listicle that like ranked all of them, which had to be really fun to write. So Techtic, I mean, I don't even need the tiebreaker. My tiebreaker, for what it's worth, the highest Rotten Tomatoes critic score obtained was for the original Saw. It was actually only 50%, which I think is way too low. I think the first one is better than that. I think the first one was very innovative, very original, very cool. But yeah, Techtic takes it. So Techtic will host next week. And hey, this is a big moment. I mean, that brings Techtic to an even 500, 9-9. Nerdbomber is 9-10. So Nerdbomber, you are officially now in last place mathematically.
Darn it.
So just first, I guess, how does that make you feel?
I don't know how I fell so far.
It's because I have big brain.
Big brain. Showing it off there. You'll host next week, so we look forward to that. And we look forward to all of you joining us again next week. If you've made it this far, congrats, you've made it to the end. And we thank you for sticking around with us. And we hope you had a good time listening. If you want to hop over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. We would appreciate that. Tell your friends, hit us up at our Twitter handles mentioned previously in the show. And you know what? Get out there and go out on the highway and flag down a truck driver. And they'll think you're hitchhiking, but don't hitchhike because that's dangerous. Just shout up into the cab.
Very unsafe suggestion.
Just yell in their
shout
window.
Up into the cab.
Online Warriors podcast.
Yeah, Online Warriors podcast, and then run as quickly as you can away from that situation because it is of questionable safety. But I'm sticking with that recommendation. I'll come up with a safer one next week. But for now, you have to go and flag down a truck driver. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.